Okay, now let's call this game. We can also call this flirting. We can call this a chess pool as well. Okay, so here's what happens. A limit is proposed. Things must be going in this direction. There was no direction before that, so contrast to nothing. If this is going in this direction, then everything else is going in the opposite direction. Now, this is the beginning of the game. If you accept these conditions, then you'll lose. Here's how. By automatically going with everything else, this limitation will burn out. We'll run out of friction. We'll run out of the ability to go without collapsing into the idea that at some point, it is just a part of everything else, and everything else is going this way. So what happens is, once the base limitation is created, the base idea of there being a limitation affecting everyone, affecting you, affecting me, affecting them, another limitation is added. And what this limitation does is it claims that you're being rude, you're being unfair, you're not doing something right, you're doing something wrong. You are not doing emotion, you are not doing emotion. There's something wrong with the way that you are, and it needs to be changed by this limitation. This can be something like getting criticized for the way that you chose to sing, being called weird, being told to give up on your currently working strategy because no one wants to fight you if that's the strategy you're going to use because it'll win. The idea that you're doing something wrong. Here is frustration. This frustration is confusion. They say things are supposed to be going this way and that you're doing something wrong by going this way. Now, at this point, if you fall for any attempt to explain this limitation here has become something twice folded. It is not just the original limitation that will eventually be overwhelmed by everything else. It is now a limitation hosted within another motion that is already justifying it. Meaning, here, if you don't accept this limitation, you'll be fine. But if here they get you by confusing you, by saying with certainty that you're doing something wrong because this is the way this part is for now, you'll be fallen into that motion. And because at this point, your limitation is smaller than theirs, their motion will overwhelm you and you will lose the game. To put it simply, the second that you fall into trying to explain this motion, into defying it, into accepting its condition, you have become smaller than the initial limitation of motion that is occurring on you. And so will collapse, will disintegrate before they do as a result. Now, because it will eventually collapse back into, if this is the only thing going this way, that means by contrast, every other thing is going this way, you'll be fine. They'll get their little short victory. They'll think they've won. They'll think that it's okay. A lot of them try to use this argument to see if they can get you killed in this time, to see if it doesn't matter. But it'll still end the same way. You won't get hurt. They'll threaten you. They'll say, we got you now. We're going. They'll move as fast as they can. What's funny about this is they get your attention here by putting a lot of energy, a lot of effort into this so that it disturbs you. Where are they getting that energy from? Obviously, there are some things that I still haven't fully put into words, but I would suggest that maybe they're getting their energy from the contrast friction here. So they go this way, it causes friction, and within that friction is the idea of a deeper limitation caused by the limitation itself. If you get trapped in that friction, you've been trapped into a smaller state than the limitation that started the motion. And so when you agree to go here, you're playing the game by the rules here, but this was the motion that started it. This was the limitation that began it. And so you are now smaller than their initial motion. So they pulled you into a trap, and you're now being affected by the momentum of their motion, even if you're only agreeing to see and play at this level because they told you to, by criticizing you into a confusion or frustration that you couldn't disprove. Because the only way to disprove it would be by almost saying nothing, so that can just be the relative greater or lesser or everything contrast against their limitation. So, all that being said, every limitation itself begins, and then whenever you don't respond, within the host of the idea of the limitation creates another consequence that is now made possible under the condition that this is what the whole game is. This is what existence is. And under that condition, and because this person is still going, if you respond to this condition, you have fallen for a trap to be putting in less motion than they are. Now, the same way they focus energy here, you can also focus your energy. Like, the fact that it's all nothing will still be this, but because it's already within their motion, you will eventually have to go through some form of a temporary loss, but it will eventually make it back to still going the direction that everything else is going. And so pretty much, keep saying that, they tipped you over like this. And then they just let the water roll down.